Hello, everyone. Good afternoon, and welcome to the fourth day of our ELT Week Argentina 2024. My name is Liliana Sanchez, and for those who do not know me yet, I am the head of English programs at British Council Mexico. The session yesterday provided a lot of practical ideas and information to start using right away in our classrooms and teaching practice. And it's not just been yesterday, it's been the full week already. We are on a fourth day and more to come. As you know, you can always go back to watch any of the sessions of the week if you have missed them, all right? But before we begin, let me remind you that safeguarding is a priority for the British Council. So you're welcome and encouraged to share your comments and questions, making sure that you maintain respectful and positive communication, and remembering not to share any personal or sensitive information. Please note that harmful, violent, or inappropriate comments will not be tolerated. If any issues or concerns, you can contact us through the email we're posting in the chat. Remember that at the end of each session, we will post a link to a quiz for you to answer and register your participation. Please make sure that your name, surname, and email address are correctly spelled. Otherwise, you might not get your certificate. Okay, so on to today's session. The session is titled Bridging the Gap, 21st Century Skills in Real Classrooms by Pilar Capaul. She's an Argentinian teacher who works at International House Buenos Aires and has delivered talks for International House and TESOL in the last couple of years. She's also the creator of Teacher of English _ on Instagram, where she shares her daily teaching experience and useful ideas. Welcome, Pilar.
Thank you, Liliana. Thank you very much. Let's see, I'm going to share my screen so that we can begin. Let's see, can you all see it? Yes? Okay, perfect. So thank you very much for having me today. It's an honor for me. And everyone, thank you for joining. So the idea today is to share some very practical, very simple ideas, things that we can do with our students. This is the thing. I'm not a very experienced teacher, I have to say. Unlike most of you here, I've been teaching for like 4 or 5 years. But I love joining webinars and going to conferences and, chatting with other teachers. And everyone, or many people at least, many people talk about 21st century skills. So they say we have to use them. We have to help our students develop their 21st century skills. But my question was, what are 21st century skills? Because I do remember being in primary school or secondary school or even teacher training college. And I remember my teacher saying, today we're going to work on reading. For homework, you're going to work on writing. Tomorrow, we're going to work on speaking. But I don't remember my teacher saying, today we're going to work on adaptability. So I thought, what are these skills and how do we even develop them? So I started doing some research and chatting with more experienced teachers. And it turns out that we actually do lots of things to develop 21st century skills in our classrooms. In my case, I just wasn't aware of that. So the idea for today is to share some ideas, very practical things that we can do with our students, and also to become aware of the things that we do in the classroom and how we're actually helping our students develop skills, maybe without even knowing. So I'm going to organize everything this way. First, I'm going to share some common situations or problems, maybe just things that can make teaching and learning a bit difficult sometimes in the classroom. And then I'm going to share some practical suggestions. And this is the thing, I'm going to be sharing some ideas. I tried everything with my students, but those were my students in very specific contexts. And I know you work in other schools and you have different students. And I'm sure that if you use these ideas, you will probably have to make some changes. So if you happen to think of alternative ideas, if you have comments, suggestions, whatever, feel free to share it in the chat box so that instead of going home with 21 ideas, we can go home with 30, 40, maybe even 50. So feel free to participate and share all your ideas and bits of advice. So let's begin. We're going to start by talking about technology. I know that now we're all about artificial intelligence, right? And the effect it's going to have on our classes and students. I still feel like there are lots of things we have to think about when it comes to technology, not just artificial intelligence. I think 2 years ago, we were still thinking about what to do with phones in the classroom. Like, they're good, useful tools. We should use them in the classroom, but at the same time, they're distracting. So what should we do? Should we use them or not? So there are lots of things, right, to consider. And sometimes, for me at least, technology can be overwhelming because, we have connection problems and we have so much information available. Sometimes we don't even know where to begin. So these are some problems that I've seen, when I was working with my students. So in many cases, they need to have their phones with them all the time because they're scared of missing out. They have shorter attention spans, and I personally associate that with apps like TikTok, for example. Students watch 30-second videos, they learn about cooking and technology and whatever they want, but it just takes 30 seconds and that's it. So I feel like the moment we expect them to focus on something for 5 minutes, maybe 10, that's a very challenging task for some students. So what can we do? We have initiative, one of the 21st century skills, and it can help students take ownership of their own learning journey. It can help them set their own goals. It can help them manage their time effectively, and it can help them seek opportunities to learn and improve. Sounds beautiful, doesn't it? Now, the real question is, how can we use this in the classroom, right? So here we have some ideas. By the way, I promised to share 21 ideas, so you will see these numbers right here to make sure that I share 21 ideas, because I promised. So the first thing that we can do is encourage our students to set and keep track of their personal language learning goals. Now, many kids have goals, right? Maybe they just want to pass the subject, they have English at school. Some of them want to sit for exams. Some of them want to travel, for example. There's always a goal. There's always something. And if not, we can find it together. Now, sometimes students, especially I think, for example, teens, maybe they don't know how to reach those goals. So we can just ask 2 questions. What do you want? And number 2, how will you get it? Now, maybe they know what they want. They know they want to be able to talk about something in English, but maybe they don't know how to get there. They don't know how they can practice. Maybe there's no one at home they can practice with. Maybe they don't have enough time to, do everything they want to do, to study at home. So as teachers, we can help. So I have a quick example. I had a student, she was 14, it was some years ago. And she said she wanted to be able to talk about her weekend with her cousins from the US. And I thought, fantastic. How are you going to do that? How are you going to get there? And she said, well, I don't know, because I come here, I'm part of this group, but then when I go home, I don't have anyone to practice with. So what should I do? And I said, well, maybe do the following. On Sunday, at night, go to your room. And when you're alone and you are, comfortable, take your phone and record yourself and talk about your weekend. That's all you have to do. And then listen to it and react. That's all you have to do. I was not expecting her to self-correct. I was not expecting her to say, that vocabulary item wasn't really accurate. Maybe I should use a different idiom or something like that. I just wanted her to say, did I share everything I wanted to share, or am I missing something? Should I look some words up in the dictionary maybe, because there's something I don't know how to express? So that's it. She started practicing that and it was very easy. Then at some point I said, well, we have to keep a record of the things you're doing, so that you can see whether you're improving or not. So why don't you share those recordings with me? And I started sharing some feedback with her. So for example, on Google Classroom, now she had a record to see how she was improving. She also got some feedback, some help. It's not her job to realize whether she's using the right tenses or not. That's my job as a teacher. But because of this, well, thanks to this very simple activity, now she had something to do. So, we can always find those tasks or short activities to help them do something outside the classroom. So let's see. Another thing we can do, maybe we don't have time to listen to everyone's recording. I mean, it can happen, especially if you're working with 25 or 30 students. So something that we can do is just give them a short sentence to complete, like this one. Today I developed my speaking skills. Today I was able to talk about my weekend. And I think I did, pretty well, because I made sure I mentioned everything I wanted to talk about. I didn't forget about anything. I was able to share everything I wanted to share. So that's it. And it takes 2 minutes. But the good thing about these activities is that you're helping your students think about the things that are helping them improve, and then they can repeat that. If they don't know, or if they cannot realize that there are some things that are helping them, we cannot expect for them to repeat those things, right? And again, it takes 5 minutes, and it's such a simple thing, All right, so let's see. Idea number 3. Another thing that we can do is we can encourage our students to share their work with people who are important for them. And this is something that we do at school. Students have blogs and they share everything. As you can see here, we have things like art, educación física, thinking skills. They share everything. So the moment they share an assignment or maybe, a text reflecting on their work, for example, they're showing their parents, other teachers, authorities at school, how they are doing. They're also taking a moment to say, am I improving? How do I know that? What am I doing that's helping me improve? So it's a very simple thing, but because we do this all the time, students are used to it, and they are used to sharing and being exposed to other people, and they're okay with it, and they use their English all the time, and it's fantastic. So if you don't have something like this, do try it, because helping or giving students something to share the things they are doing with people who are not in the classroom with them really it's just really useful. So I wanted to share that too. Here we have another idea. We can encourage students to work independently. I don't know if this happens to you too, but sometimes I feel like students rely on teachers too much. If we tell them to do something, they will do it. But if we don't ask them to do something, they won't, right? It's like they're expecting us to tell them what to do all the time. So I have a section, this one on Google Classroom, and I just share extra resources and links and videos and activities, things students can do on their own whenever they have some free time. They can check them out if they have questions, if I'm not around, and by giving them material to work with, we're helping them. Maybe you want to work on your English, but you don't know how, you don't know where to start, you don't know where to find reliable information. Well, here you have it. So, and again, it's so simple. Whenever we find something they can use, we can share it there. And, little by little, they will end up having a huge list of resources. All right. Another thing that we can do is we can encourage our students to look for supplementary materials themselves. And I'm not talking about grammar reference books or anything like that. It can just be something very, very simple. As you can see, my students and I, we always have WhatsApp groups to make sure we're communicated all the time. And they started sharing, gifts and memes and things they saw just online. And they were actually really useful. This student, for example, he read a meme and said, oh, you can say whack. That wasn't in the course book. And the cool thing is that because he shared this, we then started talking about this in the classroom. And look, he said, I think it's an interesting topic. So we started, I mean, by taking that into the classroom and planning lessons around that, it was I mean, I was showing students that I was interested in the things they had to share. So, you know, then other students find other things they find interesting or useful or whatever, just fun, and they share that with the group, and they are the ones bringing, in this case, authentic materials. So that's another thing that we can do. Let's see, idea number 6. We can also encourage our students to use their English outside the classroom. And this is the thing, most of us here are from Argentina, and at least in my case, most of my students are Argentinian. So when they leave the classroom, they don't need to speak in English. They don't have to do that. So what can they do to use their English outside the classroom? One thing, one of the many things that we can do is use social media. So this is an example. This is something we did with a group of 14-year-olds. We read The 12th Night by William Shakespeare, and they had to work in groups. And, you know, sometimes their homework was to share 5 posts on Instagram. And this is the thing, during their weekend, they had to go to Instagram, find some pictures on the internet. They didn't have to, share their own pictures or expose themselves, not at all. They just had to share things connected to the play. And it was fun. And as you can see here, we had like 4 or 5 groups, but as you can see, this account has 24 followers. That's because kids from other classes started following this account, and students said, this is really cool because other people are reading the things we're sharing. And this is something that worked really well because we were reading a play and we always had something to share. But what happens if you're not reading a long play or a long book? Something that you can do is invite your students to come up with a whole new personality for themselves. So Thomas can turn into Tommy, for example. He can create an account on Instagram, and he can start sharing things he's interested in. Music, books, movies, for example. He doesn't need to share pictures of himself. He can just take pictures from the internet, and that will be okay. These accounts are private, so no one other than you, their families and people they trust have to see the things they share. And they can use that all throughout the year, and they will always have something new to share. You know, they can talk about their weekends, the lessons they have with you, the things they read about in class, the things they do in their free time. So, you know, we can use social media too. And this was really fun. So you should try it. Yeah, because students loved it. All right, let's see. We have idea number 7. We can encourage our students to choose topics that align with their interests. Now, how can we do that? Because we do have lots of students, right? And sometimes it's difficult to do that. So this is an activity that the director of studies at International House shared with me, and it was really, really good. You basically create a file on Google Docs and share it with your students. And they all have to come up with a random name and share something they have always wanted to do. Just that. You know, we all have something we want to do, and maybe we just didn't have the chance or the possibility to do it. So they just have to write about that. And once they are done, they have to go and read the things that their classmates wrote about. And using a different color, they have to share bits of advice, tips, things like that. So I read the things they wrote and thought, what an amazing moment to talk about modal verbs, because they wanted to talk about things they couldn't do, but maybe they should do them because you only live once. And no, but yeah, I must do that. No, but I don't have to, but I could. So what an amazing moment to talk about that. So we worked on modal verbs, and then we came back to these texts, and they made some changes because now they knew more about how to use modal verbs. And this is the final version. And they were talking about things that they were interested in it's a topic that's very easy to personalize because everyone was able to talk about themselves and their own experiences. So just bringing topics that can be adapted to different students and, you know, their experiences has worked amazingly well for me. So, and I'm sure it will be fantastic for you and your students too. All right, so moving on, this is kind of like another section. So this has to do with communication. And again, here we have some common problems or situations. So sometimes students, at least in my experience, they don't seem to listen to each other. I don't know if this happened to you, but you know, when you're in class and maybe you are correcting something and student A shares an answer, the answer is okay. And then some other student raises their hand and says, I want to say something. And they say the exact same thing. And your classmate just said that. Why are you repeating that same thing again? Because you're not listening to each other. Or sometimes they want to express something, but they don't know how to. And something that calls my attention is that in many cases, students do know the words they need to communicate something. They just, when they put them together, it's very difficult to know, to see where they are going for some reason. And then shallow engagement. This is something that I've noticed whenever we work on reading in particular. You know, you read a text once to get the main idea, you read it for gist. We all get the main idea, fantastic. So let's do something else. We're going to go back to the text and we're going to analyze some details. We're going to answer some questions. We're going to infer some things. But students don't go back to the text. If you give them questions, they will answer the questions without going back to the text. And I don't know why that happens, but here we have some ideas to deal with that. So something that we can do is encourage our students to work collaboratively using online tools. And here's an example. So I had this group of teenagers, and before the lesson was over, I said, who would like to share a summary of today's lesson? And all they had to do was go to Google Classroom and share a summary of the things we did and tell their classmates if they have homework, if there's an exam coming, if they have to study, just things like that. So the cool thing is that they weren't writing this for me. You know, students usually write for teachers because we are the ones who read their writings and correct the things they do. So they were writing for other people. And then other people had to pay attention to the things they wrote because, oh, I didn't remember. Do we have homework for tomorrow? Well, I have to go to Google Classroom and see what my classmate wrote. And my classmate, I hope they were very clear because, I mean, I have to do, either I have to study or I'm sure I'll have to do some homework. So that's the idea. You give them someone else to write for, and also the responsibility. You have to be very clear because other people depend on you now. And again, it's so simple to do this. You just say, who would like to share a summary? And that's it. It takes them 2 minutes. Right. So we have idea number 9. Something that we can do is encourage our students to use a lexical notebook. Remember that I told you that sometimes students do know lots of words in English, but for some reason, it seems like they cannot put them together. So this is the thing. You know, sometimes students have like a word in English and then the word in Spanish, or they have a word in English and then the meaning. Something that they can do instead of that is having a lexical notebook. So, for example, we have a word like disgrace, for example. It sounds and it looks just like the word in Spanish. So this is not going to cause any trouble for students. Now, do they know they can use it with the preposition in? Do they know they can use it with the verb bring, for example? So the idea is that we teach our students how to use tools like dictionaries, for example. So the idea is that they see how they can use different words, how certain words collocate with other words, and how to make sentences. You know, sometimes they focus on the word. What does it mean? And that's it, but they don't really know how to use them in sentences. So lexical notebooks, they are a great idea or tool to work on that. All right, now we have idea number 10. Another thing that we can do is encourage our students to listen to each other before they speak. And this is the thing. Imagine you are, I don't know, you just finished reading a text and now you want to see what your students think. What opinion do they have on the topic? That's your question. So something that you can do is tell them that they can all share their opinion, but before they do that, they have to share a brief summary of what their classmate said before. So student A will share their opinion. And then student B has to share a summary or just make a comment on what the other student said, and then they can share their opinion. If they cannot comment on what their classmates said, they cannot share their opinion, because that's not how conversations work. If you don't know what the other person said, how are you going to, reply or share another comment? So again, it's very, very simple. Students get used to that very quickly, and it helps a lot when it comes to, working on this dysfunctional communication thing that's so common in many classrooms. All right. So we have idea number 11. We can encourage our students to keep the people around them up to date. This is similar to this other idea, but maybe you're not using Google Classroom, or maybe your students don't feel like writing, for other people. They don't want to feel exposed, for example, or maybe you don't have enough time because you don't see them very often. So something that you can do is maybe have a newsletter, for example, and once a month you can share, things that students have done, or maybe things that they are going to do. So this is just another way or a similar idea, just an alternative. All right, let's see. Something else that we can do is we can encourage our students to create their own study materials, and this is the thing, they have to share them with other students. That's the core thing. So as you can see, we were going to have mid-year exams, and I didn't say study and I'll be waiting for you with an exam. I divided students into groups, and I said, you're in charge of Unit 1, you guys are in charge of Unit 2, you guys are in charge of Unit 3, and so on. And what they had to do was go back to their notes and things we talked about and come up with a set of multiple choice questions for their classmates. And they also had to give me the right choices. I mean, they couldn't just come up with random questions without thinking about them. They had to be good questions, and they could only, they had to make sure that there was only one correct answer. And it was pretty cool. Students then came to class, then they exchanged their pre-mid-year exams, Olympics pages, and then they had to correct their classmates. And so they really had to pay attention to meaning and form. And after that, they were in charge of sharing feedback with their classmates. They had to say, this is wrong because of this, this, and that. I was not going to do that. I mean, of course, if I had to, I did it. But the idea was that they were the ones to do that and be responsible for that. All right, another thing that we can do to make sure that students listen to each other are jigsaw activities. So, for example, one thing that I think is great for this are articles in English, because they are maybe not very difficult, but there are lots of rules that students have to remember. So something that we can do is just take some pieces of paper, write, one rule and only one, and an example, and then share those with students. And then what you have to do is give students an exercise. We're focusing on form, so it can be an exercise of fill in the gap exercise. And students have to work together. So maybe when they read the first sentence, for example, I like gap dogs, someone can say, oh, we don't need to write anything here because this is a countable noun, it's plural, it's general. We can say, I like dogs, and that's it. Then when they read sentence B, someone else will have to share a rule. So students really have to listen to each other to make sure they can all complete the activity. It's very simple. It takes 5 minutes to set everything up, and students do listen to each other, and they also remember the rules better because it's not like they just read a list. They read something, they read a rule and an example and share that with their classmates. So it's a really nice activity, and they work together, so it works really, really well. All right, so this is another section, and before I'd like to go to the chat box just to check if we have questions or something like that.
No questions so far, Pilar.
Right.
Excellent comments, though. Excellent comments. Carry on, and I'll share them with you at the end.
Cool, fantastic, thank you. All right, so then we have this other section, social and cultural awareness. And this is the thing. Something that I've seen is that sometimes students don't have enough patience to work together. I want to group them and, just ask them to work together in groups. And some kids literally say, no, I don't want to work with him. No, I'm not going to sit with that classmate. And they say, no, please, I want to do it alone. And it calls my attention that young kids who, go to class with their friends are willing to say, no, I'm not going to work with that classmate. No, I don't want to sit with them. So these are some things that we can do to maybe help with that. Sometimes students have different opinions, and sometimes they are not willing to listen to other people who have, or they're not willing to listen to people who have different opinions. And this is something that has happened in class. Some students, especially, teenagers, they start talking about uni and what they're going to do after school. So I remember one day a boy said he wanted to leave the country. And then other people said, oh, really? What are you going to do? Aren't you going to study? And they started fighting just because they had different opinions. So something that we can do is analyze the same situation, but from different perspectives. For example, these two videos, they analyze the exact same situation, going to a country, like moving to a country or leaving a country. It's the same country. And something that we can do is watch both videos and then ask students to come up with to think about 3 things that they agree on with the first girl and then with the second girl. So they both have very different opinions and they have decided to do very different things with their lives. But I'm sure that there's at least one thing you agree on, or one thing that you think she did correctly. So the idea is not to change their opinions. I mean, they can do whatever they want, but the idea is to just make them consider or just pay attention to other people who maybe think differently. And that's it. Just, I know this is your opinion, but have you ever thought about it, in this way? Or have you ever, I don't know, just analyze this other perspective or point of view? So that's the idea, just to open their minds. Let's see, we have idea number 15. We can also encourage our students to reflect on the things they consume. Sometimes students just start sharing things and, in the classroom, and, where did you get that information? You saw it somewhere, you watched a video on YouTube, for example, or maybe Instagram, why do you think that video was posted? Or you read it somewhere. Who wrote that article? Are you sure that comes from somewhere reliable? Did someone, or why did someone decide to share this? Maybe, what are their intentions? Maybe we can analyze that. Or who is the message for? Maybe you read something and now you cannot stop thinking about it, but was the message for you? Were you the intended audience of that video, article, picture, whatever? So let's analyze that and see where the content comes from. Let's see, we have idea number 16. Another thing that we can do is encourage our students to make friends with people who maybe they wouldn't even think of becoming friends with. For example, there are lots of videos like these. We have a kid back in 1821 and a kid in 2021. And, sometimes people say, no, because kids nowadays, they don't do anything. They just use their phones and that's it. Well, let's watch this video, see what their life is like. And then you tell me, can you find 2 or 3 things that you have in common? Or can you come up with some activities or things that you could do together, for example? Or the other video, is life better in the US or in Europe? What do you think? And let's see, what are some things you can do in the US that you cannot do in Europe? And now let's do the same thing, but the other way around. So again, we're not trying to change anyone's opinion. We just want to make sure that students take a moment to think about things that they don't agree with, but to really listen to other people and say, you have a different opinion. Why? That's it. That's all we want to do. And besides, this is a very nice listening activity. Then we can have a very nice speaking activity. We're using authentic material. Language here is just amazing. So, we just by adding these extra questions, we can help our students develop their cultural awareness, social awareness, 2 things that are vital nowadays. All right, now we're moving on to emotional intelligence. And this is the thing, some, not all students for sure, but some students, sometimes I feel like they cannot tolerate frustration. Young kids, they are exposed to, posts and content. And I feel like sometimes they forget about the work that's done behind the scenes. They see these influencers, they travel, they look amazing, they have these amazing lives, but maybe they forget that one day they weren't like that. Their life didn't look like, their life just wasn't like that. And they did certain things to get there, to get to where they are. So the idea here is to start thinking about the things that maybe they cannot see, but are still there. So something that we can do to work on emotional intelligence. If we're working with kids, something we can do is just ask them to check in every now and then. So this is a very simple thing. They just have to use like their fingers. How are you feeling today? I'm happy. That's it. That's all they have to do. They don't have to come up with very complex sentences or anything like that. Just how are you feeling? I'm happy. That's it. And you can say why. You can ask them, okay, why are you feeling happy? They can tell you or not. That's up to them. But they will start thinking about that. Oh, why am I happy? Oh, because I'm seeing my granny later today. Or why am I excited? Oh, because I have this thing, tomorrow, and I'm very happy about that. Or no, I'm tired. Well, why are you tired? Well, because I stayed up late yesterday watching a movie, for example. So the idea here is to just allow them to think about the way they feel and the things that are making them feel that way. That's it. You feel happy? Why? You feel sad? What's making you sad? Can you stop that somehow? Can you change that? That's it. And this is another thing we can do, especially with teens and adults. It's always good to think of or reflect on how you feel. But especially adults, they love making sure that when they pay for a lesson, they learn a lot. So we can do the exact same thing, but using new idioms. For example, we can write a text, present them, in a clear context. We can work on meaning, we can work on form, pronunciation. Let's read everything out loud together. Now, which idiom you think represents you, or represents you best today, for example. So that can be a good way to check in, but you're also making sure they learn lots of new things. So we have that. Let's see, idea number 19. Another thing that we can do is we can encourage our students to reflect. They can journal, they can record themselves, they can make videos, they can share what they write about or the things, or the videos they make with us or not. That's up to them. Maybe they do want to share some things with us, maybe they don't. But the idea is to encourage them to think about the way they feel and the things that are making them feel that way, and also to use their English. Maybe they don't want to share something with us because it's very personal, and that's okay. But if they write a text in English on Saturday, that's fantastic. They're using their English outside the classroom. There may be some things they don't know how to express in English. That's okay. They can use a dictionary. After all, we already told them how to use a dictionary. So that's it. We don't always need to correct everything and say, no, this tense, no, this is not correct. We have to change some things here. They can just use their English to think about how they feel. And, that would be amazing. So there's that. We're almost about to finish. We have adaptability. This is another 21st century skill. And I think this is one of the biggest problems that students and teachers, of course, are facing right now. As a teacher, I don't feel like I'm going to be replaced by ChatGPT, but some students do. Some kids want to be programmers, or I don't know, they want to work on something connected to coding and all those, things. And, they have all these questions. Am I really going to uni to learn how to code? And then, this chat box is going to come and just replace me one day? Like, how can I plan things? How can I feel hopeful about the future if I don't know if this chat is just going to replace me tomorrow? So I feel like there are certain things that we can do. For example, we can challenge our students in the safety of our classrooms, of course. So for example, we can start a class one day and say, guys, today we cannot use paper. So your notes, you cannot use them. You cannot take down notes on paper. You cannot use, I don't know, your books, whatever. So what are we going to do? How are you going to, hand in your homework? How are you going to take down notes, for example? So they are the ones who should come up with alternative ideas and solutions. Or, for example, guys, today we cannot use our course books or textbooks. What are we going to do? How are we going to know what we should learn today? Where are we going to find texts to read, or, I don't know, activities to complete today? And they have to tell you, well, maybe we can use the internet, maybe we can read magazines, maybe we can use, I don't know, some other book that's not a course book, for example. There are so many things that we can do. Or today we cannot use technology. No online dictionaries today. What can we do? Well, maybe that's an amazing day to learn how to use a paper dictionary, for example. So we have that. All right. And we have critical thinking. This is the last section we have. And I think that the most common problem, or at least the one that I have experienced in the classroom, information overload. I feel like today we have so much information that sometimes we don't even know where to begin, when we want to, learn about something or find out about, find some information about something, just anything. Where do you go? Do you go to the internet? Do you go to, I don't know, TikTok? Because, videos are very short and it's easy to, just find information, but is that information reliable? Where should we go? So that's a problem sometimes. And something that we can do is encourage our students to analyze information. There are lots of videos like these. You should buy the iPhone 11 in 2023. Well, I mean, should you? Really? Do you have to do that? Why? And who says that? And the cool thing is that if you ask a teenager if this is a reliable source, they will most likely say yes, because as you can see, this creator has a badge. So he probably has lots of followers. And for teenagers, that's very, I mean, that counts as a reliable source. So, this can be a very interesting idea or a very interesting activity. Should we really buy the new iPhone? Why? I mean, who's going to be benefited from this? You, me, like, who is it? And another thing we can do is analyze ads. For example, we have this one right here, stay ahead of the game. It sounds fantastic, but let's see, do you think that drinking Gatorade is the only thing that can turn you into a world champion? Are there any other, factors or things you can do? For example, training. Or this one, make someone happy. Why is it that we associate Coca-Cola with being happy and Christmas? Again, we're not trying to change anyone's opinion. We just want to chat and see if they can see things from a different perspective. And that's it. That's the aim, to use our English and see things from a different perspective. All right. So those were just some of the many 21st century skills, right, that we can use with our students. These were just some very practical, very, very simple ideas. So that's it. Thank you very much for having me today. And if you happen to want to download this presentation with all those ideas, you can scan this QR code right here. Or if you want to find some other ideas, you can scan this other QR code, and that will take you to this Instagram account Liliana was telling you about.
Amazing, amazing, Pilar. I mean, I can tell you, Pilar rocks, great ideas, love it. And you have a personal message from Santiago de Compostela and Hagerson, who says, love your work, Pilar. So people, I mean, you can see the chat, overwhelming messages of how fantastic your ideas have been received. And wow, 21 ideas for 21 Century Skills in less than an hour. Congratulations. There are some questions, Pilar. So precisely, Anne Hagerson says great ideas about having students record themselves and log their goals. How would they share their progress with you, in a learning log or in a Google sheet? How will you expect them to share the students their goals?
That depends. I mean, in this case in particular, we use Google Classroom. So we had a special section where I could share comments and then they could share comments. So it was kind of like a conversation, and then everything was kept there. So students could go back and check my feedback, their comments, their recording. So there was always a record of everything. How old do you recommend the students should be for Instagram? Well, I think that depends a lot on the school where you're working, students you have. I would only do that with teenagers, but I would make sure their accounts are private and that they use different names. You really have to make sure they don't share personal pictures or anything like that, because that's not the aim. We just want them to use their English and have fun. So that's it.
And I think that relates to the next question, which is what age are these activities for?
Well, it depends. I used most of them with teenagers and adults, but I think it depends a lot on your students, their interests. Maybe they are teenagers, but they don't like using social media. So, maybe using Instagram is not the best idea. So, yeah, I think it depends a lot on your students, where you're working, the things you're allowed to do as a teacher too.
Right. I think, if I may, the British Council has some suggestions on online safety for children and teens. So they just have to go to our website. britishcouncil.org and find out about it. But there's plenty written about it. And our friends, our participants in YouTube have also made interesting, comments. Most of them is about, praising the fantastic presentation. There was, however, a question, but I think you're sharing your presentation. Somebody wanted to see activity 2 again, like if you could repeat it. I think we have a couple of minutes. I think just if you would like, can you go to activity 2, maybe just for clarification in case it wasn't very clear. Somebody asked particularly about activity 2. For me, it was clear. I don't know for others, maybe with the presentation in hand, but if you can we go back to activity 2 just for our participants in YouTube?
Right now, I cannot share my screen
okay.
because there's another presentation already.
Yeah, that's true. So why don't we do this? If there is a way to contact you, you have given the presentation and the slides. So I think it will be just how to understand the activities better. But I think in general, the audience was very, very happy with the idea. Very practical and just fantastic praises. And by the way, we're being watched by people in obviously everywhere in Argentina, Peru, Ecuador, Uruguay, Colombia, and as I said, Spain. So thank you very much, Pilar. That was very interesting. Thank you. Fantastic. And for our participants, please, if you wish to receive your certificate of attendance for this session, you can scan the QR code on the screen or click on the link that we have posted in the chat box. So remember, that's the way to get your certificate. Well, thank you. If it is all right for our next speakers, we can move ahead because it is quite a big program today. Because we have got 2 fantastic speakers next. These are Susan Hillyard and Gustavo Gonzalez, who have prepared a joint session of 90 minutes. So prepare for this. This is fantastic. We will start by listening to Susie first, and then Gustavo, and there will be an opportunity for questions at the end for both presenters. All right? So allow me to introduce Susan. Susan has a B.Ed with honors from Warwick University, UK. In her 50-year-long career in 17 countries, her roles include teacher or teaching, HOD, trainer, conference and webinar presenter, workshop facilitator, materials writer and researcher. She is the director of Shelta, offering consultancy, PPD, EMI, and courses on teaching English creatively to teachers worldwide. Lots of experience here. And she is going to talk to us about Engage Me, meeting students' expectations in the 21st century skills. Welcome, Susie. The mic is yours.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Liliana. And thank you very much to the British Council for inviting me to do this very exciting webinar with you. I've been following along with as many people as I could this week, and it's been really exciting. And I think it's such an important subject and something that I've been very, very interested in for many years. And I must point out to you that we are in the year 2024, which means that we are already 1/4 of the way through the 21st century. So we shouldn't really be talking about this anymore. So why are we talking about it? My presentation today is entitled Engage Me or Enrage Me. And this is what I feel that many of our students are feeling today. So I'm going to share my screen with you and we'll get started without further ado. Give me the thumbs up, somebody, if you can see my screen.
We can see you.
Thank you very much indeed. My name is Susan Hillyard, as Liliana said. I've got lots of thumbs up from I don't know how many people from how many countries, but I would like to point out to you that I have my own academy, which is called Shelter. It's an academy for teachers. And if you want to join my list, here you have my QR code for joining my list. So if you join my list today, I will welcome you wholeheartedly with open arms. And you will get my newsletter tomorrow about things that are coming up in March. So engage me or enrage me. What do we mean by this? The first thing I'd like to do is ask you to show me how you feel using your body. So I'd like you all to stand up and show me how you feel just now. You've just had a fantastic webinar from Maria Pilar, and maybe you're feeling a little bit tired. Maybe you're feeling a little bit amazed. Maybe you are agitated. Maybe you are excited. So stand up and show me. I'm going to stand up and show you. I can't see you, which is a shame, but I feel really excited to be doing this. And I hope that you feel strong. So show me if you're strong to join in with me today. I need strong students watching me, listening to me, and joining in the conversation. So please join in the conversation as much as you can. Let me shut this telephone off and turn it on its face so it doesn't interfere with my concentration. That's quite a comment, isn't it, today? Okay. These are our questions for today. Is the 21st century student really a different breed of student? Is the post-pandemic student a new, different breed? Is the challenge only to do with them being screenagers and wanting to be looking at this all the time, so you can't even see their face most of the time? Or does it run much deeper than that? Is it to do with attitudes and their understanding of the new world? Is it to do with our lack of understanding them? Does it run deeper? I personally have a feeling it does. What new language skills do students need in this third, how do you say it? It's more than half, I know that. My math skills aren't brilliant. What new language skills do students need now? How does the approach to the ELT paradigm need to change? And how can we change it? By getting together as heads and teachers to transform English language classrooms. So let me see what I'm going to ask you to do next. Some time ago, I read an article, quite some years ago now, can't remember how many years ago, called Engage Me or Enrage Me, What Today's Learners Demand, by Mark Prensky. And I continued to read quite a few of his articles and books to find out where he was going, to find out what he was discovering. And one of the quotes which stuck with me was this one: "Their short attention spans, as one professor put it, are only for the old ways of learning. They certainly don't have short attention spans for their games, their movies, their music, or internet surfing. More and more, they just don't tolerate the old ways, and they are enraged." If you would like a copy of that article, please just get in touch with me through my QR code, which I will put up at the end. We see this every day. They are screenagers. They are attracted to that visual stuff which is all around them. And when we go into the classroom with them, we are not quite as attractive or not quite as entertaining. And we don't go around doing lots and lots of things which grabs their attention. So how can we make some kind of compromise with this? If I'm telling lies, please tell me in the chat box that you don't agree with this thing that we see every day with our students and our own children, in fact. So what has changed? What are their demands? Is it just that they were all born with a device on the end of their fingers and they know how to use it to advantage? Or is there really an attitudinal and an ability gap between us and them? I'd like you to write in the chat box, if you will, if and how your students are different after the pandemic. So would you please write that in the chat box, please? And I hope that I can see the chat box. Can I see the chat box, Liliana?
Yeah, in the meantime, I'll read. It's more anxious, more individualistic, more easily distracted.
I found it. I found it.
Okay.
A lot of people answering.
Yes,
Easily
yes.
distracted. Social media are more important than real life. They're distracted. They're shy. They're aggressive, unmotivated. It's difficult to deal with them. They are disappointed. They lack concentration. Some of them get distracted. They are bored. They are more detached. They're more distracted, and their parents don't help either. They are really anxious, yes. They have emotional problems. They know more than we do. They get bored easily in school. They're addicted to the internet. They lack concentration and engagement. They're moody, they're angry. They're less tolerant of frustration. Wow, fantastic answers. Ooh. So we're dealing with something that we need to deal with. So that's great for me, because I think, or I hope, I'm going to give you some ideas. These are some comments that I had from a face-to-face course that I was doing at Nile in England. My teachers said they don't read. They have no idea what's going on in the world. They can't write even a narrative essay. They can't concentrate. They don't even know how to do percentages and equations. It's pathetic. I was doing CLIL at the time, so I had maths teachers in the classroom. They don't have any opinion about anything. They won't study. They don't even know when their exams are. They don't even know what day it is. All they can do is cut and paste. Now, I know these are very extreme examples, but they do fit in very well with what you have been saying in the chat. And you are the ones who are experienced. Yes, I've got lots of faces going, oh, and this is what we have to do. My session today is going to be mainly reflective, but I am going to give you some ideas from my extensive experience. As you heard from Liliana, I've been teaching or training and teaching for 50 years in 17 different countries. So I've met lots of different students. I've gone from kindergarten to university teachers. So I've had a lot of experience, and they're all the same. Well, they're all different, but they're all the same. And now I'd like to go the other way around. I'd like you to write in the chat box one phrase uttered by the students about teachers. Start from the idea that you are the students. I want you to role play a student. And I want you to start your comment with he or she or they, which is one of the pronouns we seem to be using more and more these days. So write in the chat box what they say about teachers. I get bored, serious, she's boring, she thinks she knows everything, she's old-fashioned, she doesn't understand, they don't understand us, she's very boring, she is boring, let's Duolingo. Old-fashioned, she's too boring, she's amazing, she hates me, she's unfair, they don't like what I like, she uses old words, she's too old, she's too demanding, she's boring, they are cool, aha, okay, she's funny, they're good, she's demanding, old-fashioned and boring, she's old-fashioned, they don't care about us, ooh, she is crazy, she hates me, oh, she's despicable, she's boring, they bring things I don't like, she's short, she's boring, she doesn't have any idea about what I'm thinking or going through. They're a very important one. Funny, motivating, and so crazy, she makes me laugh. Okay, great. So some of them were positive, but I'm afraid most of them were negative. She's authoritarian. So she has no empathy. She doesn't explain. Very upsetting, but predictable. So what are we going to do about it? Do we listen to them? Do they say that to us really out loud? Do we give them a chance to say it to us? I've always been of the idea that it's really important to say to your students, what did you think of this lesson? Tell me which bits you like, and then write it in your journal. So I had them keeping journals of every lesson, and 10 minutes before the end of the lesson, whether we finished or not, that doesn't matter. What's more important is finding out what they think, what they have experienced. I know what I wanted them to experience, but that doesn't guarantee that they actually did experience it. So ask them and listen to them and take note. If you ask them, you have to do something about it. So be careful, because you have to be prepared to change if you ask them. Okay, one little exercise that is one way of finding out about them, and one way for me to find out about you, is to do a little exercise called Everybody Loves. And when I'm working on Zoom, I ask my students, or my teachers, mostly teachers actually, I call them course participants. I ask my course participants to stand up and to listen to my comment. And then if they agree with it, they go up to the camera and they say with a big smile on their face, "That's me." And if it doesn't apply to them, they go off camera and they say, "Not me." And they disappear. And then you find out what people like in the group. And you find out how different we are. And yet, how we're all the same. So we're all the same, but we're all different. So I'm just going to ask you some things. I don't know if you're going to play with me. Cross your heart and hope to die and repeat after me. Dear Susan, I promise that I will play the game with you. I don't know if you said it, but try it with your students. In the classroom, of course, you can do it a different way. You can have them say, "That's me," hands up in the air, or "Not me," bobbing down. So get them out of their seats, get them responding, get them enjoying, get them feeling something is happening in this classroom that I can relate to. So everybody here today loves marking 40 essays. Not me. everybody here today loves going on webinars with Susan Hillyard. That's me. I don't know what you said about that one, but include things that you know they're going to say no to, and things that you know they're going to say yes to. And some of them may surprise you. You can even do it about the topic that you're actually studying at that moment in time. So that's called Everybody Loves. I tend to think of myself as the queen of strategies, because I believe that every teacher needs strategies. Maybe you have to use a textbook, and I understand that if your school forces you to use a textbook. I grew up in England in the 1950s, 60s, 70s, got my first job in 1972, and we didn't have any textbooks at all. I was teaching in the remedial department with students who couldn't write or read in English. We just had a lot of books. We had a lot of books of poems, a lot of books of stories, a lot of books of project work, and we had to design our own classes. So we couldn't go slavishly through the textbook from page 1 to page 90. But sometimes I know that in your schools, you do have to. So my motto is this: keep the text, change the task. Try to be more creative, try to be more performative. And in that way, you may not enrage them, you may engage them. I found this picture the other day, and I thought it sums up a lot of what's actually going on. In the last 100 years, what has really changed? Honestly, what has really changed? Ask yourself and answer yourself sincerely. I have seen students in classrooms all over the world, sitting in rows, looking at the back of each other's heads, maybe with a computer on the desk, but the computer isn't used in the classroom very often, although there is one guy there with his computer open. We don't know what he's doing. We don't know if he's doing anything to do with the class. Maybe he's talking to his friend on WhatsApp. Who knows? And at least the photo from 2024 is in color, but that doesn't make any difference to the teaching and the learning. They are working lockstep. This is education for everybody, where one size fits all. And we know we can't do that. So why do schools carry on doing it? And even from the point of view of heads, insisting on it, in fact. So I know, as Maria Pilar said, you can't do everything you want to do, because it depends on what your school says, depends on your context. It depends on what your coordinator tells you have to do. I've got somebody here who's saying lockstep is ugly, ugly. Thank you, Mariana. And I love asking students to sit in a semicircle or a horseshoe. Thank you, Claudia. I'm glad to know that some of you are already changing. That's great. But I know that you are the motivated ones. Otherwise, you wouldn't be here today. What about the rest of the teachers who are still doing this? What can we do about it? We cannot have, in the year 2024, our students sitting in rows, looking at each other's backs, and the teacher holding forth at the front of the classroom as though she is the sage on the stage, instead of being the guide on the side. At least the teacher in 1924 is actually walking around. That, I suppose, is a development in those days. So what do we do? I did find a very interesting model for myself. I'm going back now to 1972, when I was just out of university, green as grass, with my degree held to my breast, believing that I was going to be Florence Nightingale, carrying the lamp around the corridors of the wounded soldiers in education. And I seriously believed I was going to change everything. I cried every single night. I could not control 18 special needs students of 13 and 14 years old for 18 periods a week, teaching them 5 different subjects. I was exhausted. I decided I had to go back to university and do something different. So I put together my degree in dramatic arts with my specialism, which I chose, in the sociology of education, and I came up with the spice. And I'm going to teach you the spice now. Will you join in with me? Remember your promise? You have lots of witnesses here. You don't have any witnesses because we can't see anybody. Okay, I want you to stand up, please. And I want you to take your very, very straight and hard-working pointing finger, and I want you to point it up to the ceiling, and I want you to say the first sound that you see, which is like being a snake. And do a big air streaming S down to the floor. Ready, steady, go. The S is for social development. It means getting your students in pairs, getting your students in groups, working with your students in plenary, letting the voiceless have a voice, and making visible the invisible by being interactive and not being the sage on the stage. So social development. Now we're going to do P, and we're going to do big with our hard-working pointing finger, big plosive P. P with the H for physical development. You've got to have your students standing up, doing something. Students learn by listening, but it's not only listening that helps them learn. They have to move it. You have to embody the language. You have to embody the story. You have to embody the song, sound, the music. Physical movement is very important. You have to teach them English language, body language. You have to have them hold their chin up. You have to have them hold their shoulders down, boobs out, bum in, and look as though they're confident. Teach them to be confident. And then I'm going to say, ready, steady, go. Intellectual development. You must do thinking skills. You must do Bloom. And you must get to the top of Bloom, as Eugenia and Daniela said the other day. Paula said the other day. Bloom's taxonomy is so useful for us. Intellectual development also includes the arts. Empower your students through the arts. And then K, ready and go. K, 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 K. K for creative development. Some students cannot learn a language if you teach it like maths. You must teach it in a creative way. They need to engage with the language. They need to engage with the enjoyment. Think of it as when you first went out with your lover. What did you do? No, don't tell me that. When you weren't with your lover, what were you thinking about? You were thinking about being with your lover. because you wanted to embrace your lover. We want them to embrace the language. So we have to engage them and not enrage them. And E, we're going to do E, E, E. Ready, steady, go. E, 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 E. E for emotional development. Right, going to give you a test now. What does E stand for? Write it in the box, please. What does E stand for? Let's see if anybody can remember. Emotional, very good. And S. S for social development, very good. And C for creative development. Excellent, you're excellent students. And P for physical development, really good. And what have I missed out? I for intellectual. Wow, great. You've been taking notes, some of you, I like it. Or you've just got brilliant memories. People talk about SEL these days, which is social and emotional learning, SEL. Well, I've been doing SEL for 50 years because it's part of my training. We have to include the spice in every lesson in some way, just as we have to include visual learning, auditory learning, and kinesthetic learning. So we have to do those packages together. And then we have to include another package, which is sensory learning, multi-sensory learning. So don't forget the spice. Put the spice in your lesson plan. About 20 years ago, I found this model, and it has stayed with me forever. And I base all my lesson planning on spice and this model. It comes from Jim Cummins and Meryl Swain, who are at the Oise Institute in Canada. Canada is bilingual, as you know, French and English. And Jim and Meryl said that one of the things we've got to be very, very careful of is doing work which is cognitively undemanding and context reduced, which is what most language teachers do all the time. Now consider that if you're dealing with teenagers and you're dealing with very, very simple language terms like teaching them the colors or teaching them the weather, it just isn't cognitively demanding. But we think it's the only thing they can do, but it is not. And we have to change our minds about that. And we have to work up this axis as quickly as we can to get to cognitively demanding. You've heard of an approach some years ago, which was called high demand. Well, this is what Jim Cummins was talking about in 1995. Work at a cognitively demanding level. If you do the spice, you will be doing that. And instead of working with context reduced material, really, this is talking about material, like filling in the gaps and doing reading comprehensions all the time, and then doing the questions for the reading comprehension all the time. Don't do that. Make it context embedded. So you may have to do your reading comprehensions, but you've still got to somehow embed them in a context. What can the context be? Anything like stories, music, song, poems, news items, personalized language, which the students can relate to because it demands them thinking about their own context, their own lives, their own feelings, their own emotions. So base it in a context. And if you do that, you will find it magically changes your classroom dynamics. Another way to do it is to do a tic-tac-toe or a choice board. I'm not going to read through this slavishly because I know you can read, but if you can read through the ideas. So the thing is that you give them this tic-tac-toe and you say, you've got to choose 3 assignments. You can go across, you can go down, or you can go diagonally on this diagonal or the other diagonal. But you've got to do 3 things. They are all active. Read them to yourself and see how active they are. It's not passive learning at all. They have to do something to learn something. So you give the input and then they have to give their output. If you don't give them opportunities for output, you don't give them opportunities for talk, for writing, for reading, then they will not learn the language and they'll be constantly stuck and they will be enraged because they're not learning like they want to learn. And believe me, they all want to learn. That's one thing that I have found about teenagers, whether they are Arabic, Chinese, Indian, Malaysian, Spanish, Lebanese. I've taught 32 nationalities in all. And they all want to learn and they all want you to teach them, but they want to be taught in the new ways. Or they might say, we were not born to be taught, we were born to learn. So give us opportunities to learn. A nice exercise, which I've done many, many times, is this one. It's another strategy. I'm the queen of strategies. That reminds me of. You say any word, it doesn't matter. We were doing something on diversity and inclusion. So our first word was diversity. So A says diversity. B says, diversity reminds me of differences. And A responds with, differences remind me of perspectives. And B says, perspectives remind me of eyes. And A says, eyes remind me of, will you please respond in the chat box? What do eyes remind you of? Sights, caring, perspectives, experience, soul, points of view, curiosity, shades, feelings, points of view, beauty, nice book, mirror, attention, galaxies, curiosity. You see what you get out of people if you do a little tinsy wincy, eeny weeny, yellow polka dot bikini type strategy like that one. So ask them what they think. Give them think time. I'd like you to look at the following collage of images, and I'm going to give you 1 minute think time where I'm not going to speak. I just want you to choose one which appeals to you and tell us why in the chat box. Try to be simple and succinct. So let me check that you understand the instructions. Look at the collage of images. You can use images with your students a lot. Choose one which appeals to you and tell us why in the chat box. Lovely. The fish jumping out of the bowl. teamwork. The tree, because it allows you lots and lots of branches to branch out into the world. The human pyramid, people working together for a common goal. Lovely sense of community, diversity, change, next exit. Okay, here we go. I like that one very much. Okay, creating the future. Great. Change next. Everyone is afraid of changing, but change brings great things if you dare. In fact, Margaret Ferguson said some years ago, many years ago, in fact, we all know deeply that on the other side of every fear is a freedom. And this is what people fear about change. Hang on 1 second. I'm going to put my light on because it's getting dark here in Buenos Aires. That's a bit better. Good. Okay. Ask your students, show them pictures, ask them things, find out the diverse perspectives in your classroom. So tell us in the chat box, outside the confining walls of the classroom, what do they do? If we're all saying they're bored, if we're all saying they can't concentrate, they can't, they're too distracted, they can't focus, what do they do when they're not in the classroom? It seems like they're all kind of schizophrenic almost. They're one person inside the classroom, they're another person outside. So tell me in the chat box, what do? They chat, they do sports, they discover the world, yes. They check Instagram, they listen to music, they create stuff. Yes, let's take the outside in and the inside out. I love that. They play video games. They do gamification, they surf the net, Instagram, they use the cell phone, they hang out, they talk to each other, they interact, they use the cell phone, they sleep. They go out with friends, they play instruments, they eat, they have fun, and they meet people. They do stuff. Let's see what some of my students have told me they do. This is what my students told me that they do. And it's true. So what is it in these activities that makes them do it when they don't have to go to school? And what is it at school that makes them feel bored or makes them feel that teachers are old-fashioned or disappointing? How can we change what we do? Because they can't change. My next question is, what about you? Outside the confining walls of the classroom, what do you do? I'm already guessing what you're saying. Dance, cook, write, draw, read, swim, meditation, meet friends, go fishing, webinars, listen to music, sleep, go to the gym, drink, run, watch movies, watch series, cook, relax, lesson plans, study, enjoying your family, prepare classes, go running, do exercise. Okay. So you see, we all do things outside the classroom, which are completely different from what happens inside the classroom. And that is correct. But why do we have so many different attitudes to it? Do you go into school every morning and say, oh, I'm so glad to be with you. I want to see you grow. I want to see you change. I want to see you understand the world you're in so you can take your place in it when you leave school. What's your attitude to the students? What do they feel that you feel towards them? Whatever you feel towards them, they will reflect back to you. I've got a teensy weeny short video here, which is called Stop Psychiatric Labeling of Students. It's the Pygmalion danger. If you label your students will give it back to you. If you label them in a different way, they will also give that back to you. Okay. Let them choose. Give them the tools to choose. Let them be in their element. Use performative activity in whatever you are doing. So it's not just you instructing, but it's them taking your input and developing it as they can develop it. Give them the space and the time. Find white space in your lessons. Instead of just saying, write a story about something that's happened in this room, tell them they are going to breathe deeply, feel the room, then they're going to go outside the room, into the corridors, into the grounds of the school, out into the surroundings, beyond the city, into the countryside, and they're going to jump off the world into another place altogether. And then they're going to come back and they're going to stand up and they're going to put their ear to the wall, anywhere in the school. Trust them. You have to trust them. And they're going to listen to what the wall tells them. This comes from the idiom, the walls have ears. You can do it on their desks if you want. Get them to put their heads down on the desk and listen to a desk that has ears. And then they come back and tell their stories. And then they can write their stories down. I have had wonderful results from this very little tinsy-wincy exercise. Hannah Payne said, "We are the first true digital natives. I can almost simultaneously create a document, edit it, post a photo on Instagram, talk on the phone, all from the user-friendly interface of my iPhone. Generation Z takes in information instantaneously," she said, "and loses interest just as fast. Entrepreneurship is in their DNA. Kids are witnessing startup companies make it big instantly via social media," said Andrew Schoonerova, a 15-year-old in Olathe, Kansas. "We do not want to work at a local fast food joint for a summer job. We want to make our own business because we see the lucky few who make it big. what do we do about entrepreneurship in school? I'm directing you to the Partnership for 21st Century Schools, and I'm not going to spend any more time on it because everybody already has. They've talked about critical thinking, collaboration, creativity, and communication. And Eugenia and Paula talked about Bloom's taxonomy on Tuesday. And Claudia Ray talked about the value of questioning at different levels and for different purposes and different reasons. So I'm not going to go into that. But I wonder if you know Maslow's pyramid. Maslow, a psychologist from many years ago, Abraham Maslow. I learned about this at university in 1969. He talked about how students have to have their different levels of needs fulfilled before they can get to the highest point on the pyramid, which is self-actualization. I urge you to study it and to apply it to your own teaching. So, to conclude, we must change, ask questions, tapping into prior knowledge, opinions, ideas, imaginations, know what questions you're asking, appeal to visual literacy, use images, video clips, YouTube, let them choose, appeal to action, body and brain, be more demanding, use Bloom. Oops, sorry. Must have touched something. Notice, be more reflective, mindful, caring, and above all, be real. Calvin's teacher said, "You have a question, Calvin?" "Yes, what assurance do I have that this education is adequately preparing me for the 21st century? Am I getting the skills I'll need to effectively compete in a tough global economy? I want a high-paying job when I get out of here. I want opportunity." In that case, young man, I suggest you start working harder. What you get out of school depends on what you put into it. Oh. Ugh. Then forget it. And what I am adding to this is what you put into your lesson planning also depends on what you get out of it. So what you put in, how much you reflect, how much you change will give you the results you want. And as Kip Leland said, today's students are not ADD, they are EOE, engage me or enrage me. And if we educators don't start coming up with some damn good curricular gameplays for our students, and soon they're all going to come to school wearing, at least virtually in their minds, the t-shirt I recently saw a kid wearing in New York City. I'm not ADD, I'm just not listening. The choice is yours. So thank you to the British Council, Argentina, to you, the global participants. And if you would like to take a copy, a scan of the QR code, you can join me on Shelter and get all the latest news. If you would like to write in the chat box one idea you're going to choose, because the choice is yours. If you'd like to write something in the chat box as to what you're going to choose from this session today.
Bravo, Susan, bravo. I mean, simply fantastic, somebody wrote, and I just have to read this from Maria Pilar Capaul. Thanks, Susan. I have just remembered why I'm a teacher. I have never cried in a webinar before. So thank you so very much for that. Such an inspirational talk, Susan. Bravo is all I can say. And of course, people want to get access to your slides, and we will address other questions in the chat because I need to pass on to Gustavo. But again, bravo! You also made me remember why I became a teacher in first place.
Oh,
So thank you very much.
I'm the one who's crying now. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So after being engaged or enraged, we're going to move on to Gustavo. Gustavo is a teacher of English, international teacher, educator, and presenter, holds a postgraduate certificate in ELT, a diploma in education and new technologies, and a diploma in neurosciences for educators. He has presented all over Argentina, South, Central, and North America, Spain, Singapore, and China. And he's here with us today with his talk, Fun, Memorable Lessons Through Student Engagement. Please welcome Gustavo.
Thank you, Liliana. Thank British Council for this.
Gustavo, is it me or are we having difficulty hearing you? Yeah, it seems like we cannot hear you, Gustavo. Is there something in your...
Can you hear me?
Now we can. It seems like it comes and goes. Let's see. Yes, go ahead.
Is it okay?
Yes.
Okay. No, I was telling you thank you, and I was thanking the British Council for trusting me with this webinar, and I wanted to thank you all, guys, for being here and staying for this last leg of this fourth day of the ELT Week Argentina 2024. So I'm going to be talking about student engagement, tagging along Susan's presentation. And as I'm going to be talking about student engagement, I'm going to invite you to be my students today, and I will try to engage you. Yes, and so I prepare and I design my presentation as hands-on as possible. So I will need your cooperation. Can I count on that? Would you be willing to participate very actively? Great, great, thank you. So I'm going to start sharing my PowerPoint. Let's see if you can see it here. Okay. Is everything okay? Can you all see the screen? Liliana, is everything okay?
Yes, we can see you. Go ahead.
Fantastic. So guys, as Liliana announced, my talk is called Fun, Memorable Lessons Through Students' Engagement. So what am I going to be doing? What are we going to be doing today? We're going to be discussing motivation and engagement. I'm going to be inviting you to explore one model for engaging teaching to exist. And I'm going to have a go at some trial activities with my students that hopefully you can use with your students, both in face-to-face and online lessons. And I hope you can identify with many of these ideas that I'm going to be sharing to make your students engage with the content they are supposed to learn. So I'm going to start by inviting you to watch a clip from a movie that dates back to 1986 when I was 15, 16 years old. And the movie is called Ferris Bueller's Day Off. Does the name of the movie ring a bell to you guys? Oh, I cannot see sorry, I cannot see the chat, so I'll keep doing this. So maybe you may be
Yes. Some no, some
maybe.
yes. Go ahead.
Okay, so maybe you may be familiar with a very young Matthew Broderick being the lead actor in the movie. Yes, and your task when you watch this chunk will be to tell me what, in your opinion, from your very personal point of view, you consider that what's wrong in this video I am about to show you. So from a very personal point of view, I would like you to not to destroy the scene, but to critically analyze what went wrong. Are you ready? Let's have a look.
In 1930, the Republican-controlled House of Representatives, in an effort to alleviate the effects of the, anyone? The Great Depression, passed the, anyone? a tariff bill, the Hawley-Smoot Tariff Act, which anyone raised or lowered? Raised tariffs in an effort to collect more revenue for the federal government. Did it work? Anyone? Anyone know the effects? It did not work, and the United States sank deeper into the Great Depression. Today, we have a similar debate over this. Anyone know what this is, class?
The video
Anyone?
got stuck.
Anyone? Anyone seen this before? The Laffer curve. Anyone know what this says? It says that at this point on the revenue curve, you will get exactly the same amount of revenue as at this point. This is very controversial. Does anyone know what Vice?
Sorry, Liliana, there's a problem with the video.
Don't worry,
Sorry.
I think they got it. It says boring, self-centered, boring, there's no motivation, memoristic, reproduction of information, there's no thinking time.
Okay.
So I think they got the idea.
Okay, great. So let me go back to the slides to see. Okay, here. Sorry about that. And let me share again. Okay. Okay. Here. So guys, what do you think went wrong? It's totally boring, right? And in my opinion, this kind of like a tone of voice. What do you think about this teacher's tone of voice? Can I read any comments on the chat box about the tone of voice? Monotonous voice, slow pace, monotonous and boring. Body language. Okay, what can you say about body language? The teacher was very self-centered, boring, great. The content was boring. Yeah, but he was supposed to be teaching that content, but still he did not, well, you were not able to see the whole chunk, but he had no expression. He was answering his own questions, right? And his delivery style did not incorporate any body language, any paralinguistic features. There was no expression, just words, no feedback, no emotions. I'm just reading on the chat, uninteresting. Wow, yes. I think that he had a kind of inability to read his students. He was not able to read his students and to realize that they were not paying attention. I can also say that there was no thinking time. He was saying, anyone, but he was not giving enough time for students to think about what they were supposed to be answering. He showed no interest in his students. I think that he didn't make any eye contact. You also mentioned, I think somebody mentioned that he showed no passion, and of course, there was no student engagement at all. No student engagement at all. And my session today is based on student engagement. So in order to address that issue, let's revisit the concept of student engagement. And student engagement, guys, refers to the degree of attention, curiosity, interest, optimism, and passion that students show when they are learning or when they are being taught. And you know what? Learning improves when students are inquisitive, interested, or inspired. And that learning tends to suffer a lot when students are bored, dispassionate, disaffected, or otherwise disengaged. And now everybody's talking about AI, artificial intelligence, and everybody's saying, this is going to replace teachers. No, of course, the artificial intelligence is not going to replace teacher. I think that we need to use it as one more tool that will help us enhance the learning experience of our students. I will not rely on AI if I don't know how to use it. I need to teach my students, or maybe share with them how they can profit from artificial intelligence. But the thing is that if we trust and we rely a lot on artificial intelligence, what we will be doing is we will be like outsourcing some brain functions. And so the students will not be using that part of the brain that they need to think, to memorize, because everything will be just a click away, or a kind of bot will do the job for them. So technology will engage students only if it is used effectively and with pedagogical reason to enhance the learning experience. So this is me with Sarah Mercer, an expert in this question of learner engagement. And she says that you can be the most motivated learner in the world, but if something distracts you and you disengage, you're off. And she says, if there is no engagement, there is no learning. And I would say, if there is no engagement, there is no commitment. No engagement, no commitment. And I want my students to be engaged so that they can commit to their own learning. The challenge is for us teachers to see how we motivate our students. It's not how we motivate our students, sorry, but how we manage to keep them paying attention to what they are learning, or what they are doing, or what you are explaining in class. So engaging teaching can be described as something like this. And I'm going to invite you to go back in time and see if you remember this. Engaging teaching is this.
Abuelito, dime tú, ¿qué sonidos son los que oigo yo? Abuelito, dime tú, porque yo en la nube voy. Dime.
Does anyone remember this cartoon? I'm too old. No, me too. I was a very young kid when I remember watching Heidi, right? Well, but you may be wondering, what's the connection between engaging teaching and Heidi? Well, let's see who remembers this. Do you remember Heidi's best friend? Do you remember her name? Let me see if I can see the answers here. Clara. Of course, Sarah Mercer has no idea that I'm using her concept, her acronym, and I am relating it to Heidi. Engaging teaching is exactly Clara. And Clara is an acronym Sarah Mercer came up with, right, to identify the key elements that we need to bear in mind for engaging teaching to exist. So, what do you think the C stands for? The letter C. What do you think the letter C stands for? Let me see the chat. Creativity, communication, challenge, commitment. Okay, great. Something that I always do, guys, is when I try to engage my students and I start brainstorming and I am inviting them to make their contribution to the content of the class, I have learned through experience that there are no right or wrong answers, but valid answers. What I'm doing here, I am somehow paving the way or helping you increase your self-esteem, that you can make a contribution to my presentation without being afraid of being corrected or making a mistake. So maybe creativity is not what Sarah Mercer came up with for her concept of the C, for her idea of Clara, for the first initial, but it's valid, because in order for you to say that, you are making a connection to something that you already know. You're activating your prior knowledge, you're activating your schemata, you're connecting to who you are and what you know. So who am I to tell you that your contribution is wrong because it doesn't match my idea, or it doesn't match what the teacher's book says? So open the door to plurality of interpretations when it comes to engaging students. Make their voice valid, make their voice count. Okay? Sarah says that the C stands for challenging. Okay, so what does she mean by challenging? Sometimes we provide students with tasks that are significantly below our students' current abilities, right? And so they are really boring. On the other end, tasks that are significantly beyond our students' current abilities are discouraging. So she says that tasks that are right on the border of success and failure are incredibly motivating to our human brains. Tasks that are on the border of success and failure. So that's a challenge for the students. So let me ask you a question. Are you familiar with the Goldilocks rule? The Goldilocks rule. Let me see the chat. Okay, you're saying that you're not familiar with the Goldilocks rule, but can you make a connection because of the name, because of Goldilocks? Can you make a connection to what you think may be related to? Fairy tale, Jose, fairy tale. Clara's, the girls and the Goldilocks. Aha. Wow, wow, Recitos de Oro. Okay, okay, just the right thing. It has to do with the fairy tale, Goldilocks and the Three Bears. Yeah, do you remember that phrase from the story when they were talking about the soup? Not too hot, not too cold, just the right temperature. Not too big, not too small, just the right size. That has to do with the Goldilocks rule. The Goldilocks rule states that humans experience peak motivation when working on tasks that are right on the edge of their current abilities. Not too hard, not too easy, just right. So what happens when you present students with a task that is really, really simple? They get bored. And what happens when you present students with a task that is like super challenging? They get frustrated. And those different ends of the spectrum will not serve the purpose of engaging students. But as a teacher, you get to know your students. You know your students, and you know that if they can do better, raise the bar and demand high. Raise the bar, never, lower downwards. So we have the C for challenging. One of the characteristics for engaging teaching to exist. What is the next letter in the acronym? L. And what do you think L stands for? Let me see some of your comments. Learner center, learners. Great, you're hitting the nail on the head, guys. I love it. You're hitting the nail on the head. The L, according to Sarah Mercer, stands for learner center. And what is this idea of learner center? That we need to give our students voice and choice, so we can pave the way to foster learner autonomy. I want my students to be autonomous users of the language. And you know something that I do a lot with my students, and I always tell them, I don't want you to be perfect learners of English. No, I don't want you to be perfect learners of English. I want you to be effective users of English. And believe it or not, that wording, that choice of words makes them feel that, hey, I know that I can communicate effectively even if I make mistakes, right? And by giving students choice and voice, as I will show you later on in my presentation, you will be helping them feel really engaged and therefore committed to their own learning. And of course, everything we do in class must be interest driven. We have to awaken interest in our students. Curiosity killed the cat, forget it. Curiosity is the key element for students to want to learn something instead of having to learn something. Right? So we have C for challenging, L for learner center. We have A, the first A in Clara. What do you think this A stands for? I already mentioned awareness, authentic, attempt, active, aims, awareness, autonomy. I love all of them. Valid answers. Sarah says that A stands for active. And the best way to engage students and to have them play an active role and to be the lead actors in their own learning experience is by working with project, quest, where they learn by doing this kind of experiential learning, as Kolb and Moon explained and researched many years ago, right? The students learn better by doing. What you learn by doing, you will not forget. Then we have the letter R. What do you think the R stands for? And this has to do with something that somebody said before. It has to be relevant or valuable. The content that you're teaching has to be relevant. And you may say, yes, but maybe this reading comprehension that appears in the course book is not very relevant for my students or for my students' context. Piece of advice, feel free to change that reading comprehension. Internet is an endless source of resources that you can turn into materials to address our students' authentic needs. What is that they are learning English for? Not just to pass a test. They are learning English for life, to become like effective citizens of this global world they are part of. So this content should be relevant and valuable, and it has to matter to who they are. And it has to matter to who they are outside the classroom. It's not that you learn English just during my class and that's it. It has to matter outside the classroom. And it's something very important that you need to consider, is that progress could be easy to see. Students need to see how well they are performing, how they are improving. And we go to the last letter of the acronym, which is the last A, which has to do with what I mentioned before, with autonomy. Whatever you do in class, the content that you use, the material you use, has to be autonomy rich. How can we foster this autonomy in our students? By giving them the possibility of choice. And you can tell me, Gustavo, but they cannot get to choose maybe the course book we're going to be using. I agree with that. But they can get to make smaller choices, like what they do, when they do it, how they do it, and who they do it with. Open the floor and invite them to make their contribution. What do you want to do with this unit, with this exercise in the book? Would you like to do it here in class? Would you like to do it at home? And if you are giving them the possibility to voice their ideas, you have to be consistent and do what they say, right? So you have to walk your talk, which is what I will try to do with my presentation on responsibility, on engagement, on this question of making you feel engaged all throughout my presentation, right? So let me see if you remember the acronym. Clara, C is for, let me see, challenging. Perfect. What about the L? L stands for learner centered. Great. What about A, the first A in Clara? Active. What about R? It has to be relevant. And what about the last A? You have it on the screen. It has to be autonomy rich. Don't wait until the end of the class to revise, to review, and to go over the concepts. Break the class into many beginnings and many endings. Make short chunks of activities, theory, comments, incorporate brain breaks so you can keep the students engaged for as long as you need them to be engaged. Having said this, guys, right, I'm going to invite you to share some practical ideas that I have used with my students. And what I'm going to be doing today is I'm going to show you how I complemented one of the topics that appear in every course book, which is, what do you want to be, or what do you want to do when you grow up? Typical question that will allow for the Clara model to come to life. And I will see if I can show you how this works. In order to share this with you, I'm going to invite you to do something with Matilda, Roald Dahl's Matilda. So if I say Matilda, what is the first idea that comes to your mind? Matilda. A movie. Florencia said, Maria Florencia said, a movie. Magic, great. Wow, the kid, great. Are you thinking about the book, or you're thinking about the movie with Danny DeVito being Matilda's father? Mrs. Trunchbull, Tronchatoro, right? Great. Well, so I thought that maybe the movie was quite old to be used here. So I decided not to use the old movie, but to use not even the new version of the movie, because Netflix, I think you have on Netflix, I think it was last year, Bruce, the teacher, wow, they made, from the original movie, they made a musical, both on Broadway and on the West End in London. From the musical, they made a new version of the movie, which is a movie from the musical. And this is what I want to be sharing with you. So the first thing that I'm going to ask you to do is just a pure listening comprehension exercise. Now you are my students, and I want you to listen to a song from the musical called When I Grow Up. This is just a warm-up activity to build up confidence. So your task will be to pay attention to the many times you hear the phrase, when I grow up. So the only thing I want from you now, or I need from you now, is to enjoy the song and listen to the number of times you hear the phrase, when I grow up. Right? Just a listening comprehension, no video. You can just count with your fingers, you can make notes on a piece of paper, you can just take notes, but it's just, I need a number. Right? Let's see.
When I grow up, I will be tall enough to reach the branches that I need to reach to climb the trees you get to climb when you're grown up. And when I grow up, I will be smart enough to answer all the questions that you need to know the answers to before you're grown up. And when I grow up, I will eat sweets every day on the way to work, and I will go to bed late every night. And I will wake up when the sun comes up, and I will watch cartoons until my eyes go square. And I won't care, 'cause I'll be all grown up when I grow up.
I'm going to stop there. So far, how many times did you hear the phrase, when I grow up? Wow, I have a variety of numbers, 4, 5, 3, 6, 7. Okay, let me ask you a question, guys. Do you think that this listening comprehension was challenging? Was it challenging? Very challenging, but the task was very simple. So you can present students with a very challenging task and a very simple task, just depending on the level, exactly. But look at this, the task was very simple. You had to identify the number of times you heard the phrase, when I grow up. But there were some distractors, as you do with international exams, right? So far, the number of times the phrase was uttered was 4. Only 4. But yeah, then there were some similar phrases that were confusing. Yes. So okay, exactly, the task was very simple, but you had to pay attention and remain in silence. So this was just to introduce you to the song. Your task now, guys, will be to tell me, which of these phrases you think will not appear in the song. When I grow up, I will eat sweets every day, I will be strong, I will watch cartoons, I will go to primary school. Most of these phrases may appear in the song or not, but I'm not doing a listening comprehension. Now I'm asking you to read very short sentences, very short expressions, very short utterances to complete the phrase, when I grow up, blah, 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 blah. So what do you think? Which of these phrases do you think will not appear in the song? When I grow up, I will go to primary school. Exactly. When I grow up, I will work from 8 to 6. No, we are teachers. We work 24/7. Right. So here, what you're doing is they are connecting with the text from a very personal perspective, right? I am paving the way to, or I am trying to scaffold listening comprehension. I will give you the name of the song at the end, or maybe you can have access to the whole material at the end. I will tell you how. The song is called When I Grow Up. When I Grow Up. So you see how you are making your contribution from what you think, making your personal connections. So the task now will be to listen to the song again and identify the first two phrases that you hear. When I grow up, and you tell me, okay? Let's see.
When I grow up, I will be tall enough to reach the branches that I need to reach to climb the trees you get to climb when you're grown up. And when I grow up, I will be smart enough to answer all the questions that you need to know the answers to before you're grown up.
Okay, so which is the phrase that you heard? The first one. Tall, tall. And the second one? Was it on the list? It wasn't. It wasn't. So you see that you were focusing, you were just paying attention to get one word, because the structure was very repetitive. So even though the expression was not on the list, you got the word, I will be smart. And then you complete the idea. So now that you have this idea, tell me, where would you place these expressions? Now I'm just giving you the lyrics of the song. And you will be doing a reading comprehension and a matching exercise. And you say, no, but my students will not be able to understand all the words. I don't care. But they will be able to understand the words, not only because of what they remember, but because of the contexts. And so in this way, you will show them that they don't need to understand every single word. And that will be, hey, I understood a piece of original material, of authentic material. So when I grow up, I will, which is the one, I will tall enough to reach the branches that I need to reach, the climb the trees, blah, blah, blah. I don't care about the rest, but they are making connections. You are giving them chunks, meaningful expressions, so that they can make a connection. It's not a question of guessing and writing whatever comes first to mind. And what about the second? And when I grow up, I will be smart to answer all that, blah, 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 blah. And then you say, and when I grow up, I will every day on the way to work, and I will every night, and I will when the sun comes up, and I will until my eyes go square, and I won't care because I'll be grown up. And what's happening here? I haven't given you enough time to listen to this part twice, and you don't have enough context, so that makes it hard for you to guess. You see what happens? So value the importance of context, value the importance of drilling, of repetition, because you may have heard the saying, practice makes perfect. Yes, but I told you at the beginning that I don't want perfect students, but I do believe that practice makes permanent. The more you practice, the more they will acquire the language, because I am trying to prepare Lourdes exactly effective users of English. Well, having said this, now I will invite you to watch a little bit of this song from the Broadway musical. Let's see if you enjoy it.
When I grow up, I will branches that I need to reach to climb the trees you get to climb when you're grown up. And when I grow up, I will be smart enough to answer all the questions that you need to know the answers to before you're grown up.
And when I grow up, I will eat sweets every day on the way to work, and I will go to bed late every night.
And I will wake up when the sun comes up, and I will watch cartoons until my eyes go square. And I won't care 'cause I'll be all grown up when I grow up. When I grow up, when I grow up, when I grow up, I will be strong enough to carry all the heavy things you have to haul around with you when you're a grown up.
I'm gonna stop there. Do you like the song? It's a beautiful song. And do you think that your students can relate to what they are watching? Kids their age, singing a song? Yes, and the only aim that I had in mind was, when I grow up, I will. So now is your, and this is something important. I'm not going to show you the whole clip. Leave your students wanting more. Leave them wanting. So you can say, sometimes when you are doing an activity, you get carried away because the activity is working well, and you say, okay, let's continue until the activity gets boring, until students get bored. So what happens? What happens if you stop the activity when the activity is at its peak? No, teacher, no, we will continue next week. And you know what? Next week, they will be the ones, teacher, can we do the activity we did last week? Oh, they will be the ones wanting. Exactly, Rosalia. Kill it before it dies. Kill the activity before it dies. Don't let it lose the impact the activity has. So now it's your turn. Oh, sorry. Sorry, I played the wrong button. So, guys, what do you want to be when you grow up? And you know what happened when I did this with my students? Hey, what do you want to be when you grow up? Automatically, they say, teacher, when I grow up, I will. And the only thing that they had to add was just a word, a vocabulary item from the course book, because they have been exposed to the expression when I grow up many times from different angles. They read the expression, they heard the expression, they talked about the expression. So now it was part of their response. Teacher, when I grow up, I want to, or I will, blah, 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 blah. So if you ask this question to your students, be ready, guys, mind you, to get some things like Instagrammer, influencer, YouTuber, blogger, vlogger, gamer, TikToker, because these are some of the answers you may come across, right? And I came across, talking about coming across this from internet, and I think this is brilliant. The teacher asked the students, what do you want to be when you grow up? And the student says, I want to be Michael Jordan when I grow up. And the next question, what do you need to do to achieve your dreams? And the student very smartly wrote, get bigger, shave my head, and be black. Is that critical thinking and creative thinking, or what? It would have been a terrible mistake if the teacher had corrected spelling. Spelling here is not, it's not even an issue in this kind of exercise, because what we are doing here is, through language, we are helping develop, well, Susan and Pili were talking about 21st century skills. My personal choice is to call them global skills. Skills that will make them be global citizens of the world, yeah, embracing their bilingual identity. I always say that. Something that makes my students feel really, really good about their learning is that when I tell them that I have this very clear and distinct Argentinian accent when I speak English, and I don't want to change it. It's my choice because this is who I am. This is what I tell them. I learn English the same way you are learning English, and I can speak English. I can communicate effectively with a clear, Argentinian accent, and that defines who I am. So embrace your bilingual identity. That's what I tell my students. Speak your English. Yes, I will correct you as long as your English is not clear enough or affects communication. But otherwise, use English to get your message across the way you can. So, having said this, if you're working with very young learners, you can ask them to draw when they want to be when they grow up. And so you can just give them some freedom to create something because they may not know the words yet, because it's part of the vocabulary set they are supposed to be learning. And then, I'm just like finding a way to get into the book. Yes, some of the vocabulary that will appear in the book says, now draw the following: firefighter, a surgeon, a pilot, and a nurse. Can you believe what happened? This was really not shocking, but it was kind of, I don't know, like revealing, right? It's true, Monica, all the students like drawing too. How many of these occupations do you think were drawn as women, and how many do you think they were drawn as men? Most of them drew the firefighter, the surgeon, and the pilot as men, and the nurse as a woman. So this is to show you how we are culturally biased to interpret and to make connection to the world, right, that they live in. And this is to show you because this is a way of incorporating this question of sexual education, ESI, in a nice way, even at an early age, right? And let me show you this experiment to prove you, to show you the importance of starting with this deconstruction of gender at an early age. Let me show you this experiment.
This afternoon, we're going to draw people doing different jobs. And the first job we're going to draw is a firefighter.
Have a think in your head what a firefighter looks
Oh, we
like.
do the same.
What's your firefighter called?
Mine's called Firefighter Gary.
Firefighter Stan. Firefighter Simon.
He's big and strong.
He's got a big helmet on.
That's brilliant, isn't it?
Next, we're going to draw a surgeon.
Have you thought of a name for your surgeon?
Jim Bob.
Jim Bob.
He's a brain surgeon.
I think he would wear a stethoscope. He gives you medicine.
That's his ambulance.
OK, next, we're going to draw a fighter pilot.
This is his jet plane.
He rescues people.
He likes to do stunts in the air and stuff.
OK, now, who would like to meet these people for real?
Yeah! They're dressed up.
My name's Tamsin, and I'm a surgeon in the NHS.
My name's Lauren, and I'm a pilot in the Royal Air Force.
My name's Lucy. I'm a firefighter in the London Fire Brigade.
So who wants to know how to do an operation?
Who's putting it on?
Try
Everyone
my
put it on.
stethoscope.
We put this in here. There you go. Now you're a proper fighter pilot.
So into your ears. Can you hear that? Yeah. It's really good. It's much better, yeah, it's much better than the kids' one.
Okay, guys, I think that it is in our hands. We have the power to start redrawing the future. Did you notice that gender stereotypes are defined between the ages of 5 and 7? So it takes the surprise element, Liberto, yes, the surprise element is amazing. You could see this reaction on the kids' faces. The thing is that we have that power in our hands. It's not that we are teaching English, we are educating human beings in English. English is the means to help them become, hopefully, bilingual citizens, but developing all these global skills they need to lead us life in this world, right? That we're part of. So I think it's time to redraw the balance. So having said this, guys, right? So what I think we need to do? We need to help students break down stereotypes. We need to create spaces for them to be themselves in English. I think that we need to promote learner agency and autonomy more than ever before. We need to make our students fall in love with learning the same way I am in love with teaching, and I hope you are in love with teaching as well. And we need to allow them to make choices, and we need to help our students find their voice, find their own voice, not the voice of this kind of parroting what the book says. Is helping them come up with meaningful idea, meaningful sentence, something that relates to who they are, applying the Clara model. Challenging activities, learner centers, active, relevant, and autonomy rich. As I am running very short of time, I won't be able to do this activity with you, but this Edpuzzle is one of the many AI tools that I use with my students, and I discovered it during the pandemic, which is a site where you can make videos interactive. I'm not going to show you this, but I'm going to show you a little bit of the song that I use for the activity. You can access this QR code and maybe save it for later, or if not, at the end of the presentation, you will have my personal email address and my Instagram account. You can email me and I will send you a PDF document of the whole presentation, plus the links to the whole videos that are on YouTube, right? So you can have access to the whole material. So this is the song that I use for this activity.
I have a voice, simple and clear. It speaks the truth for all to hear. It gives me hope, it gives me faith. It lifts me up, it keeps me safe. I have a voice, it's mine alone. It comforts me, it is my own.
And I'm gonna stop the song here, because if not, we're gonna all end up crying out of emotion. I cannot conceive the idea of teaching without an emotion. Yes, do you remember the card say, I think, therefore I am? I think that I feel, therefore I learn.
Oh,
I feel, therefore I learn. There's no
beautiful.
way that your students are engaged if you don't make them feel something important. So this song is very nice. It was made by kids, by Broadway kids, to fight against bullying. But you know what? I don't know if you realize that the song presents simple present for the third person singular. So instead of asking students to repeat, to parrot the everyday activities, you can make them say, for example, I have a voice, it's loud and clear, it speaks the truth, it comforts me. The grammar is the same.
Yeah,
the vocabulary is different, and they will be relating in a much personal way to what they are learning. So Liliana, if you allow me, can I have 5 minutes more just to close?
I think I don't know. You know what?
I will.
Okay,
I will.
just
to show you something. The final way was for students to create their own I have a voice video.
Of course.
Make your own I have a voice video. Learner autonomy, creativity, active, challenging, yes, learner center. And they could do something like this.
My name is Oli. My name is Jess. My name is Mabel.
Josh.
Yomiyu. I'm 9 years old.
I'm 11 years old.
I'm 10 years old. My favorite subject at school would be math.
I like science most of the time. Does Fayette count as one? I like them all.
Math?
My favorite subject is math. You get to learn multiplication, division, subtraction.
Mode, mean, median, and range. I think it's really fun to just learn numbers.
When I grow up, I'm not exactly sure what I want to be.
I want to finish high school and then I want to go to Brown, Yale, or Harvard.
I want to be an author, a scientist, a historian, and a hockey player.
And then I want to get a PhD.
I want to be a marine biologist.
I want to be a musician, an actor, or a lawyer.
Go to Wimbledon and win the championship.
I want to be a medical doctor. I want to be a surgeon. I want to be a doctor. I want to be a doctor.
A doctor? No, not a doctor. An engineer. I want to be a teacher or an actress. I'm not sure which yet.
Probably, watch YouTube. Yeah.
Oh, there you go.
I think it's important to have a voice because it means that we get to speak up. It gives you a chance to speak your mind.
Sometimes, like, not everyone's heard and everybody has an opinion.
So other people can know what you believe in. You should never, underestimate someone because you never know what they are and how they are. It is important to have a voice because if you want something to say, you should be able to say it.
Adults shouldn't be the only one that get to make decisions, that get to tell about everything they like and what they know. Because adults don't always know what the kid would think.
For a lot of these issues, kids have an inside perspective. If we don't learn to speak our minds and take part in the community, what's going to happen to the community?
You're involved and you know what's happening in your community. We can inspire other people, show the world who you are.
You get to share your ideas and you get to say what you want.
You need to have a voice to speak loud and give your ideas because your ideas might change the world.
I'm Evan, and I have a voice.
My name is Jocelyn, and I have a voice.
My name is Jess, and I have a voice.
I have a voice.
I have a voice.
I have a voice. I'm proud of my voice.
And you need to hear it.
Awesome, dude. Nice job.
That's absolutely amazing, Gustavo. That's amazing.
The best way to contribute to our children's being happy through learning is by engaging them, not with technology, but using technology, but always respecting the personal touch, the human parts we are, the human beings we are. We need to help our students find their voice. Once they find their voice, everything is possible because they will be the center of our class. So, student engagement is more than just making sure that students are entertained with or participating in a lesson. In order for it to stick, it has to matter. It has to involve higher order thinking. And to increase student engagement and ownership of learning, we should give students opportunity to do meaningful work that makes a difference locally, nationally, and globally. And just to round up, let me finish with this quote by Elizabeth Berkley, who said that student engagement is the product of motivation and active learning. It is a product rather than a sum, because it will not occur if either element is missing. Having said this, guys, thank you very much for staying until the very end of the presentation. This is my personal email address and my Instagram account, and I hope you are taking some ideas on how to engage students. Oh, sorry. I stopped sharing and maybe
Don't worry. We have got your email and your Instagram Instagram contact in the chat. Everything is put in the chat. And I have to say, yes, when I was doubtful about the 5 minutes, people started writing, yes, give him 5 minutes. That's how much people enjoyed your talk. And to summarize it, somebody said, you are the best, you're number one. And with that, we would like to thank you, Gustavo, Susan, We would like to thank all the participants who have joined us today, of course. We would like to thank Pilar, who gave the first session. And once again, remember that we have on the screen and posted in the chat box the link for the session quiz. So please click on it now and register your participation. So thank you, everybody. Have a good night. And tomorrow, Rob will be there. It was my pleasure to be with you today. Thank you, Susan. Thank you, Gustavo, and everybody in Argentina. Bye-bye.